The morning sun cast long shadows across Research Station Kepler as it slowly turned in the deep space between three star systems. Dr. Maya. Chen walked through the quiet corridors toward Laboratory Complex 9, her soft footsteps echoing off the metal walls. She had made this same journey every day for 3 years, but today felt different somehow. Maya paused at the large window overlooking the observation deck. Outside, the Helix Nebula spread across the darkness like a cosmic flower, its bright colors swirling in patterns that still took her breath away. This was why she had left Earth, as she'd spent 6 months traveling through space gates to reach this remote research station. The chance to study stellar formation alongside the galaxy's greatest scientific minds was worth any sacrifice. She continued down the corridor, passing laboratories filled with equipment from a dozen different worlds. The Zephyrian crystalline computers hummed with processing power beyond human understanding. The Rigelian bioscanners could detect life forms at distances that human instruments could barely imagine. The Terran quantum calculators worked alongside alien technologies in ways that created entirely new forms of research. Maya's own laboratory was smaller than the others, but it was home. She had decorated it with pictures from Earth, mountains and forests, and oceans that helped her remember why her work mattered. 3 years ago, she had been one of only 5 humans selected for the Galactic Research Initiative. It was the highest honor any human scientist could receive. The station housed 43 researchers from 12 different species. Most days, the diversity felt like magic. Different minds approached problems in unique ways, creating solutions that no single species could discover alone. But some days, the differences felt like walls that could never be crossed. Maya checked her personal tablet as she entered her lab. The morning briefing would begin in 20 minutes. Today they would review the latest findings about Class G star formation in the Outer Rim territories. Her research over the past 6 months had revealed interesting patterns that challenged current theories about how new solar systems developed. She pulled up her data files on the main screen. The numbers and charts showed something remarkable. Star formations seemed to follow emotional patterns, rather than purely mathematical ones. Areas where multiple species had established colonies showed different stellar development than empty regions. It was as if consciousness itself influenced how the universe grew and changed. This finding excited Maya beyond measure. If correct, it meant that life and cosmic development were connected in ways that science had never understood. It suggested that emotions and intuition played roles in universal processes that pure logic could not explain. However, Maya knew that some of her colleagues would resist these ideas. The Zephyrians especially valued logic and mathematical proof above all else. To them, emotions were primitive evolutionary mistakes that interfered with clear thinking. They had built their entire civilization around removing feelings from decision-making processes. Kesra was the station's lead Zephyrian researcher, and one of the most respected scientists in her field. Her crystalline skin reflected light and patterns that indicated her emotional state. Those Zephyrians claimed they had no emotions. Her forearms could work on multiple projects simultaneously, and her analytical mind processed information faster than most computers. Maya had tried to build a friendship with Kesra over the past 3 years. She had shared her research openly, asked for advice, and shown genuine respect for Zephyrian scientific methods. But Kesra had grown increasingly critical of human research approaches, especially Maya's tendency to consider intuitive factors alongside mathematical analysis. The criticism had started small. Comments about human methodology being interesting but unproven, suggestions that emotional considerations weakened scientific objectivity, questions about whether humans were truly ready for advanced galactic research. Over recent months, the criticism had become more direct and personal. Kesra had begun questioning Maya's qualifications in front of other researchers. She had dismissed human contributions to group projects and suggested that Terran scientists were holding back progress through their emotional thinking. Maya tried to understand Kesra's perspective. Zephyrian culture had achieved incredible technological advancement through pure logical thinking. Their cities were marvels of efficiency. Their spaceships traveled faster than any others. And their scientific discoveries had revolutionized galactic understanding of physics and chemistry. But Maya also believed that, emotions provided insights that logic alone could never achieve. Human intuition had led to breakthrough discoveries throughout history. The greatest human scientists had combined analytical thinking with creative leaps that came from feelings and hunches rather than mathematical calculations. The morning alarm chimed, indicating that the briefing would begin in 5 minutes. Maya gathered her datapad and research notes, then made her way to Conference Room Alpha. The large circular room had been designed to accommodate different alien anatomies. With various types of seating and environmental controls, Maya took her usual place at the human section of the table. Dr. Ross Williams and Dr. Anna Foster. The other human researchers on the station nodded at her in greeting. Around the room, representatives from different species settled into their positions. Commander Tall. The station's Regilian leader stood at the center of the room. His tall, thin frame and pale blue skin gave him an imposing presence, but his manner was always calm and professional. He had treated all species equally during Maya's time on the station. "Good morning, colleagues," Commander Tall began in his careful, measured voice. "Today we will review recent findings about stellar formation patterns in sectors 7 through 12. Dr. Chen, please begin with your analysis of Class G star development." Maya stood and activated the main display screen. Her charts and graphs filled the space above the conference table, showing stellar formation data collected over the past 18 months. She had spent countless hours analyzing this information, looking for patterns that others might have missed. The data shows unusual clustering in areas where multiple species have established colonies, Maya explained. Star formation rates increase by an average of 37% in inhabited regions compared to empty space. The increase appears to correlate with colony population sizes and species diversity. She highlighted specific examples on the display. The Kepler 442 system, which houses colonies from 5 different species, has produced 3 new Class G stars in the past 2 years. Similar systems without colonies show no new star formation during the same period. Murmurs of interest circulated around the table. Several researchers leaned forward to study the data more closely. Maya felt a familiar excitement as she shared discoveries that could change how the galaxy understood cosmic development. Furthermore, Maya continued, the spectral analysis of these new stars shows unique properties that suggest they formed through processes we don't fully understand. The chemical signatures indicate formation speeds faster than current models predict. Dr. Vexnor, one of the Andromedon researchers, raised a tentacle to ask a question. Have you considered gravitational effects from increased space traffic in colonized areas? Yes, Maya replied. I've run calculations controlling for spacecraft traffic, artificial gravity generators, and other technological influences. The correlation remains strong even after accounting for these factors. Kesra's crystalline skin began to shift toward darker hues, indicating what Zephyrians claimed were analytical processes rather than emotional responses. Her forearms moved across multiple data tablets simultaneously as she reviewed Maya's findings in real time. Dr. Chen Kesra spoke in her precise, musical voice. Your methodology appears to include several uncontrolled variables. How do you account for the role of consciousness in cosmic development without falling into primitive mystical thinking? Maya felt a familiar tightness in her stomach. Kesra's questions always seemed designed to undermine rather than understand human research approaches. I'm not suggesting mystical explanations, Maya replied carefully. I'm presenting data that indicates correlations we should investigate further. But your interpretation implies that biological consciousness affects stellar formation, Kesra continued. This conclusion requires evidence beyond statistical correlation. Where is your proof of causal mechanisms? I'm not claiming to have identified causal mechanisms yet, Maya said. This research presents preliminary findings that warrant additional investigation. Science often begins with observing unexpected patterns before understanding the underlying causes. Kesra's skin shifted to even darker hues. Human science often begins with emotional wishful thinking disguised as observation. Your species consistently allows desires for cosmic significance to cloud analytical judgment. The room fell uncomfortably quiet. Maya felt heat rising in her cheeks as other researchers watched the exchange. This was becoming personal in a way that professional disagreement should never become. My analysis is based on mathematical data collected over 18 months, Maya said, working to keep her voice steady. I've used the same statistical methods that this research station employs for all stellar formation studies. The methods are adequate, Kesra replied dismissively. The interpretation reveals typical human bias toward finding patterns that support emotional needs rather than objective truth. Your species wants to believe that consciousness matters in cosmic development because it makes you feel important in an indifferent universe. Dr. Williams shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Commander Tall watched carefully, but did not intervene. Following his policy of allowing scientific debate to proceed naturally, Maya took a deep breath before responding. She had faced criticism before, but Kesra's words felt particularly cutting today. Respectfully, Dr. Kesra. You're making assumptions about my motivations rather than addressing the data itself. I am addressing the fundamental flaw in human scientific thinking, Kesra said, her voice becoming sharper. Your species is pathetically emotional. You allow feelings to contaminate every analytical process. Perhaps if humans spent less time on their primitive emotional responses and more time on logical thought, you might contribute something meaningful to galactic science. The words hit Maya like physical blows. She felt her hands tremble slightly as the room remained silent. Other researchers looked away, unwilling to become involved in what had escalated beyond professional disagreement. Kesra was not finished. I have reviewed your entire research portfolio from the past 3 years. Consistently sloppy analysis, biased by hope rather than evidence. Your emotional attachment to positive outcomes clouds your judgment at every stage. This is why humans will never achieve true scientific advancement. You are too primitive, too controlled by feelings that evolution should have eliminated millions of years ago. Maya felt tears threatening at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not give Kesra the satisfaction of proving her point about human emotional weakness. Around the table, sympathetic faces from allied species watched her with concern. But no one spoke in her defense. Your research methodology is contaminated by wishful thinking, Kesra continued relentlessly. Your conclusions reflect human desperation to find meaning and significance in a universe that operates according to mathematical laws, not emotional desires. Until your species learns to suppress these primitive responses, you will remain inferior contributors to galactic scientific knowledge. Maya closed her datapad with steady hands. She gathered her research notes and personal tablet with careful, deliberate movements. Every eye in the room followed her actions as she stood slowly from her chair. The silence stretched for long seconds. As Maya organized her materials, she could feel the tension in the room. The discomfort of researchers who had witnessed something that went far beyond professional critique, rather than defending herself or launching a counterattack against Kesra's harsh words. Maya simply finished gathering her belongings. She pushed her chair back under the table and walked toward the conference room exit with quiet dignity at the doorway. Maya paused without turning around. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and clear, carrying no trace of anger or hurt. I'll be in Lab 7 if anyone needs the emotional humans research data. The door sealed behind her with a soft hiss. Leaving the conference room in complete silence, Maya walked down the corridor toward her laboratory, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. She did not look back. 3 days passed without Maya Chen attending a single research briefing or group meeting. Her absence created an unusual quiet in the daily operations of Research Station Kepler. The other researchers noticed the empty chair at the conference table, but no one spoke directly about the incident with Kesra. Maya continued her work in Laboratory 7, a smaller research space that she had converted into her private workspace. The lab was located in a quieter section of the station, away from the main research complex. She had filled it with her personal equipment and the comfortable reminders of Earth that helped her think clearly. Dr. Ross Williams stopped by her lab on the second day. He found Maya working at multiple screens, analyzing stellar formation data with an intensity he had rarely seen before. Charts and graphs covered every available surface, showing patterns and correlations that seemed to dance across the displays. "Maya, are you doing okay?" Ross asked, settling into the spare chair beside her main workstation. "People are asking about you." Maya glanced up from her calculations. Her eyes showed fatigue, but also a fierce determination. "I'm fine, Ross. Just working on some projects that require concentration." What Kestra said was completely out of line, Ross continued. Commander Tall spoke with her about maintaining professional standards in research discussions. "Did he?" Maya asked without much interest. Returning her attention to the data streams flowing across her screens, Ross watched her work for several minutes. The complexity of her analysis was impressive, combining multiple data sources in ways that created entirely new perspectives on stellar development. "What are you working on exactly?" "Alternative models for predicting stellar formation cycles," Maya replied, highlighting specific data points on her main display. "If consciousness does influence cosmic development, then our current prediction methods are missing crucial variables." "That's fascinating work," Ross said, studying the patterns Maya had identified. "Have you shared this with the research team?" Maya's hands paused over her keyboard. "I think I'll focus on developing the methodology more completely before presenting it to colleagues who consider human research fundamentally flawed." Ross understood her reluctance. The past 3 days had been uncomfortable for everyone on the station. Kesra had continued her normal research activities, but other scientists seemed uncertain about how to interact with both her and Maya. The collaborative atmosphere that made the station successful had been damaged. After Ross left, Maya returned to her analysis with renewed focus. She had discovered something remarkable in the data. Patterns that suggested stellar formation followed predictable cycles when viewed through the lens of consciousness influence. If her hypothesis was correct, it would be possible to predict where and when new stars would form with unprecedented accuracy. The work required combining mathematical analysis with intuitive understanding of how different species interacted with their cosmic environment. Maya found herself drawing on knowledge from anthropology, psychology, and even philosophy alongside traditional astrophysics. It was exactly the kind of interdisciplinary approach that Kestra had criticized as unscientific. Meanwhile, in the main research complex, problems were beginning to emerge with the current stellar formation models. Kestra had been working on calculations to predict solar activity in the nearby Rigel system, where 3 planets housed important mining colonies. Her mathematical models were technically perfect, following established principles of stellar physics with logical precision. However, the predictions kept producing inconsistencies. According to Kesra's calculations, the Rigel star should remain stable for the next several thousand years, but observational data suggested increasing instability that her models could not explain. The discrepancies were small, but persistent, creating uncertainty about the safety of the mining operations. Dr. Vexnor approached Kesra on the 3rd day with additional concerning data. "The spectral analysis from Rigel shows unusual fluctuations in the corona region," the Andromedan scientist reported. "The patterns don't match any known stellar behavior models." Kestra examined the new data with growing frustration. Her logical analysis indicated that the star should be stable, but the observations clearly showed otherwise. "Run the calculations again," she instructed her research assistants. "There must be an error in the data collection." Multiple recalculations produced the same results. The mathematical models predicted stability, but the star itself was behaving in ways that pure logic could not explain. Kesra found herself facing the possibility that her analytical methods were missing something important. In Laboratory 7, Maya had been monitoring the same stellar system as part of her broader research into consciousness-influenced cosmic development. Her alternative methodology suggested that the Rigel star was entering an unstable phase that could produce dangerous solar flare activity within days. Maya's analysis incorporated factors that traditional models ignored: the emotional state of the colonies, the stress levels of the mining operations, and the psychological impact of different species working together in close proximity. Her research suggested that consciousness created feedback loops with stellar development that could accelerate or destabilize natural processes. According to Maya's calculations, the 3 mining colonies around Rigel were experiencing unprecedented stress due to recent labor disputes and resource shortages. The negative emotional environment was creating resonance effects that influenced solar magnetic fields in ways that purely mathematical models could not predict. On the 4th day after the confrontation in the conference room, Maya's monitoring systems detected the beginning of unusual solar activity from Rigel. The early warning signs were subtle, but her consciousness-based models indicated that major flare activity would begin within hours. Maya faced a difficult decision. She could alert the research team and potentially save lives. But doing so would require presenting her theories to scientists who had dismissed her work as primitive emotional thinking. Kesra had made it clear that human intuitive methods were unwelcome in serious scientific discussion. But as the solar activity indicators continued to increase, Maya realized that professional pride was less important than the safety of 40,000 colonists in the Rigel system. She compiled her data and sent an urgent message to Commander Tall requesting an immediate meeting. Commander Tall received Maya's message. While reviewing routine station reports in his office, the formal tone and urgent priority marking caught his attention immediately. He had noticed Maya's absence from group meetings and had spoken with Kesra about maintaining professional courtesy, but he had not realized that Maya was continuing active research on critical systems. 20 minutes later, Commander Tall arrived at Laboratory 7, accompanied by Dr. Foster, the 3rd human researcher on the station. He found Maya surrounded by displays showing real-time solar monitoring data from multiple star systems. Commander Maya began without preamble. I believe the Rigel star will produce major flare activity within the next 6 hours. The mining colonies need to be evacuated immediately. Commander Tall studied the data displays with careful attention. His Regilian background included extensive training in stellar physics, and he could see that Maya's monitoring showed concerning patterns. However, her conclusions contradicted the official stability predictions that Kesra had filed just days earlier. The current models indicate that Rigel should remain stable for several more millennia, Commander Tall said slowly. What methodology are you using that produces different results? Maya activated her main analysis display, showing the complex interaction models she had developed over the past 3 days. I've been incorporating consciousness factors into traditional stellar physics equations. The emotional and psychological state of nearby colonies creates measurable effects on stellar magnetic fields. Dr. Foster leaned forward to study the calculations more closely. Maya, this is incredible work. How long have you been developing this methodology? 3 years, Maya replied. The research I presented at the briefing was preliminary analysis. This represents the full development of consciousness-influenced stellar modeling. Commander Tall examined the data with growing concern. Maya's models showed clear correlation between colony stress levels and solar magnetic field fluctuations. If correct, the current labor disputes and resource shortages in the Rigel system were creating conditions that could trigger dangerous solar instability. Dr. Chen, you realize that implementing evacuation procedures for 40,000 colonists requires absolute certainty about the threat level, Commander Tall said carefully. Are you confident in these predictions? Maya met his eyes directly. Commander, my models show a 93% probability of major solar flare activity beginning within 4 hours. The flares will be powerful enough to damage colony shields and threaten life support systems. The weight of the decision hung heavy in the small laboratory. Commander Tall knew that false alarm evacuations were expensive and disruptive, potentially damaging his career and the station's reputation. But he also knew that failing to act on legitimate warnings could cost thousands of lives. Dr. Foster spoke into the silence. Commander, Maya's track record for predictive accuracy is exceptional. Her consciousness-based models have consistently outperformed traditional methods in smaller-scale tests. Commander Tall made his decision. Dr. Chen, I'm authorizing emergency communications to the Rigel colonies. We'll implement immediate evacuation procedures for all non-essential personnel in emergency. Shielding for critical operations. As Commander Tall left to coordinate the evacuation, word of Maya's predictions spread quickly through the research station. Within an hour, Most of the scientific staff had gathered in the main observation deck to monitor the Rigel system through the station's powerful telescopes. Kesra arrived at the observation deck to find her colleagues analyzing data streams from Maya's consciousness-based models. The Zephyrian scientist had spent the past hour trying to understand how her logical calculations could have missed such significant stellar instability. Dr. Vexnor approached Kesra with obvious concern. The evacuation procedures are proceeding smoothly, but I'm confused about the prediction methodology. How did Dr. Chen identify instability that our mathematical models missed? Kesra studied the displays showing Maya's analysis. The human had incorporated dozens of variables that traditional stellar physics considered irrelevant. Population stress, cultural conflicts, economic pressures, and psychological factors from multiple species. It was exactly the kind of emotional, unscientific approach that Kesra had criticized. Dr. Chen appears to have included sociological and psychological data in her stellar modeling. Kesra replied stiffly. Such factors have no proven connection to stellar physics. But even as Kesra spoke, she could see that Maya's predictions were proving accurate. The solar monitoring displays showed increasing magnetic field instability that matched Maya's consciousness-based models with remarkable precision. The mathematical models that Kesra had considered scientifically superior were clearly missing crucial variables. 3 hours after the evacuation began, the Rigel star produced its first major solar flare. The burst of radiation and charged particles would have overwhelmed colony shields and damaged life support systems across all 3 planets. Maya's early warning had provided just enough time for complete evacuation of vulnerable personnel. Commander Tall's voice echoed through the station's communication system. All research staff, please report to Conference Room Alpha for Anne. Emergency briefing on the Rigel situation. Conference room filled quickly with scientists eager to understand how Maya's methodology had succeeded. Where traditional models had failed, Maya entered the room quietly and took her usual seat, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of skepticism, she faced expressions of curiosity and respect. Commander Tall began the briefing by confirming that all colonists in the Rigel system were safe, and that Maya's predictions had proven accurate down to the timing and intensity of the solar flares. He then asked Maya to explain her methodology to the assembled researchers. Maya stood and activated the main display, showing the complex interaction model she had developed. Traditional stellar physics focuses on mathematical analysis of stellar composition, magnetic fields, and nuclear processes, she began. These factors are crucial, but they don't account for the influence of consciousness on cosmic development. She highlighted specific examples from her data. Inhabited star systems show different behavior patterns than uninhabited systems. The emotional and psychological state of nearby populations creates measurable effects on stellar magnetic fields through quantum consciousness interactions. One of the Centaurian researchers raised a question. Dr. Chen, can you explain the mechanism by which consciousness influences stellar physics? The mechanism appears to involve quantum entanglement between conscious observers and the systems they observe. Maya explained. When large populations experience stress or conflict, they generate quantum field fluctuations that resonate with stellar magnetic fields. The effect is subtle, but measurable over time. Kesra listened to Maya's explanation with growing amazement and discomfort. The human had developed a scientific framework that incorporated emotion and intuition into rigorous analysis, creating predictive models that outperformed pure mathematical approaches. As Maya continued her presentation, Kesra began to understand that she had made a fundamental error in judgment. She had dismissed human emotional thinking as primitive weakness. But Maya had proven that emotions could be integrated with logic to create superior scientific insights. When Maya finished her presentation, the conference room erupted in questions and discussions about the implications of consciousness influenced cosmic development. Researchers from multiple species wanted to collaborate on expanding Maya's methodology to their own fields of study. Kesra remained silent throughout the discussion, processing the profound implications of what she had witnessed. Her purely logical approach to stellar physics had missed crucial variables that Maya's emotion-integrated methodology had successfully identified. The human had saved thousands of lives by combining analytical thinking with intuitive understanding. After the briefing ended and other researchers dispersed, Kesra found herself standing alone in the conference room, staring at the display screens that still showed Maya's consciousness-based models. The elegant integration of mathematical analysis with psychological factors created a scientific framework that was both rigorous and innovative. That evening, Kesra made her way to Laboratory 7. She found Maya working at her displays, continuing to refine her methodology and monitor other star systems for potential instability. The human looked up as Kesra entered but said nothing. Kesra stood in the doorway for several minutes, her crystalline skin shifting through various color patterns as she processed complex emotions that her species claimed not to experience. Finally, she spoke in a voice that was softer than her usual precise tone. "Dr. Chen, I have been reviewing the correlation between your methodologies and their predictive success." Kesra began carefully. "Your integration of intuitive elements with analytical framework produces results that pure logic cannot achieve." Maya continued working at her displays, acknowledging Kesra's presence but not responding directly. The silence stretched between them, filled with the quiet hum of the laboratory equipment. "I failed to recognize that what I labeled as emotional weakness might actually represent cognitive strength," Kesra continued. "Your species has developed the ability to incorporate subjective experience into objective analysis in ways that enhance rather than compromise scientific accuracy." Maya finally looked up from her screens, meeting Kesra's multifaceted eyes. "You didn't just question my methods, Kesra. You questioned my worth as a scientist and as a person. You called my entire species pathetically emotional and primitive." The words hung in the air between them. Kesra's skin shifted to deeper hues as she processed the full impact of her previous statements. "I was wrong," she said simply. "Not just about your methodology, but about the fundamental nature of consciousness and its role in scientific understanding." Maya studied Kesra's expression for a long moment. "What changed your mind?" "Your results," Kesra replied. "In your response to my criticism, lesser scientists would have argued or tried to prove their worth through confrontation. Instead, you withdrew with dignity and allowed your work to demonstrate its own value. That showed wisdom that pure logic cannot achieve." Maya nodded slowly, considering Kesra's words. "Sometimes the most powerful response to cruelty isn't confrontation. It's letting your actions speak louder than any argument could." Kesra remained motionless in the doorway, finally beginning to understand something profound about human nature. "Your silence taught me more about the value of emotional intelligence than any debate could have accomplished." The two scientists looked at each other across the laboratory, representatives of vastly different approaches to understanding the universe. For the first time, both recognized that their differences could be strengths rather than weaknesses. "Dr. Chen," Kesra said formally, "I would be honored to collaborate with you on expanding consciousness, modeling to other areas of stellar research. My logical analysis, combined with your intuitive insights, could advance our understanding of cosmic development significantly." Maya smiled for the first time in days. "I would welcome that collaboration, Dr. Kesra. Science is always stronger when different perspectives work together." As Kesra left Laboratory 7, she carried with her a new understanding of humanity's unique contribution to galactic science. Humans had not evolved beyond emotion. They had evolved the wisdom to integrate emotion with logic, creating insights that neither approach could achieve alone. The research station returned to its normal collaborative atmosphere over the following days, but with a new appreciation for the value of diverse thinking styles. Maya's consciousness-influenced methodology became a standard tool for stellar analysis, credited with saving countless lives through improved predictive accuracy. Human intuition and emotional intelligence had proven themselves not as weaknesses to overcome, but as strengths that enhanced scientific understanding in ways that pure logic never could. The silence of dignified withdrawal had spoken louder than any argument, demonstrating humanity's greatest strength, the wisdom to let their work prove their worth.